Today's Heritage Highlight is coming to you from Mayo Clinic in Florida, right here in Jacksonville, and I am joined by Carole LaRochelle.
Hi, Axel. Thank you so much for coming to visit us.
Thanks for having me. And Carole is the lone archivist here in Jacksonville, and we'll talk more about your role in just a little bit. But first, let's give viewers a very brief history of how this campus came to be. In fact, we're standing right in front of the very first building, the Davis Building.
That's correct, Axel. The Davis Building was the first building to be built on the Mayo Clinic Florida campus, and it is named in recognition of the generosity of the Davis family. A little background about the Davis family: William Milton Davis was the founder of the supermarket chain Winn-Dixie. And when he passed, his four sons, including James Ellsworth, J.E. Davis, took over the business, and J.E. served as chairman. And it was J.E.'s relationship with Dr. Hugh Butt in Rochester, because all four Davis brothers would go to Rochester for the annual physicals. And it was this relationship that sparked the flame for the idea of a Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. Dr. Butt shared with J.E. that he walked 1.5 miles to work every day in sub-zero weather, and J.E. said, "You guys need to come to the South."
And so he was serious about that and went to the mayor of Jacksonville, right?
Correct. J.E. contacted the then mayor of Jacksonville and said, "Mr. Mayor, you need to help me out. I'm getting sick and tired of having my behind on a cold gurney in Rochester, Minnesota."
It's a valid argument, right?
Correct, correct. He says, "I want the Mayo Clinic to come here, and I have the land to donate."
Wow.
Yes. And so J.E. and his wife, Flo, donated 140 acres, and that was the start of Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville.
And we need to travel back even more in time just briefly, because Jacksonville has had a reputation for healthcare for many, many years, and that actually dates back to the Civil War, right?
Yes, it does. The community of Jacksonville treated the Union soldiers who were taken prisoners by the Confederate Army. And then in the 1800s, steamboats brought tourism to our area. Northerners from the visited the area during the winter, and hence the term medical tourism evolved.
And some of those northerners or tourists would include the Mayo family, right?
Correct. In 1925, Dr. Will, Hattie, and friends of theirs came to Jacksonville on the North Star. They started their trip down the Mississippi, across the Gulf of Mexico, up the Florida Atlantic coast on their way to Charleston. Well, then the North Star needed to be repaired, and in the captain's logbook, it's recorded that they jumped off while the boat was being repaired and enjoyed the city, dined at the Hotel Seminole, and even visited an ostrich farm.
And I think you even have a model of a boat just like this right here on campus, right?
We do. Waltman Walters, the grandson of Dr. Will, he made a scale model replica of the Orinoco, and it is in our Heritage Hall.
Wonderful. So let's go back to the mid-'80s. Mayo Clinic has now started. How did it look in the early days?
So in the early days, it was staffed by 36 Mayo-trained physicians who are affectionately known as the Dirty 30, as well as 120 staff members. There was just the one building, the Davis Building, therefore research was in trailers, human resources operated out of a hotel room, and there was no hospital on our campus, so our physicians had to travel 9 miles down a toll road to treat patients at St. Luke's Hospital.
Wow, so space was not plentiful initially anyways, right?
No, it was not.
It looks a lot different today. I mean, now we're looking at 1,300 physicians, 8,500 allied health staff taking care of 163,000 patients, at least as of last year, right, Carole?
Correct.
Always growing, of course. And as of 2021, so about 3 years ago, that includes you, right?
That includes me. Yes, I joined Mayo in 2021 as the campus's first archivist, and it was during their 35th anniversary.
And as it goes, when you are the very first archivist ever on a campus like this, you started out with what literally was 2 closets full of history material, right? It's fascinating.
35 years, more or less, collected and stored in 2 closets in our medical library. I've been very honored to be able to talk to our living history, and I work with emeriti, retirees, alumni, my historical activities subcommittee, in gathering the stories from the physicians and staff who opened these doors.
You actually reactivated or rewired, as he said, I believe, a special person to help you with this.
That's correct. Dr. Ron Reimer, who is a retired neurosurgeon, He retired in 2020, and I called him out of retirement to help with to help facilitate and interview his peers.
And he has done that with great passion. Carole, we'll talk to you in just a little bit more. But for now, let's quick chat with Dr. Reimer as well. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Reimer.
Good to be here.
Describe for us that sense of community among that early group of staff. How did teamwork and collaboration shape that early culture here?
It was very critical for us to all have strong camaraderie and collegiality. Many of us had recently finished training at Mayo Clinic Rochester. So it was not only beginning a career, but also being in a totally new place, totally new building. We had to rely on each other. So it's very strong collegiality, camaraderie. In fact, I memorized all the pager numbers for all the staff.
Oh, wow.
In the ER, you need to call people. So it was just a very fantastic opportunity to be in on the ground level, boots on the ground, all working together.
Dr. Reimer, since then you've retired, but now you have been reactivated, right, to become involved with the Oral History Project. What inspires you to capture these stories?
As I learned so much from reading and hearing about the Mayo brothers and the history in Rochester, I thought many co-workers felt it was very important for us to record some of the early experiences here in Mayo Jacksonville as we continue to grow. As much as I learned from being a resident and living in Rochester and, going to the Plummer building where there's phenomenal archives of history and surgical equipment and, experiences of physicians there, we felt as a group that it would be very important for us to similarly record the history here so people can look back on that and understand where we were, how we accomplished the growth, and look at the exponential trajectory.
Dr. Reimer, what is your advice to young physicians who are just now starting their careers, especially as they may try to connect with Mayo Clinic history?
Another great question. First thing that comes to mind is mentorship. And, we grow. Before we even go to medical school, we have mentors in life, often our parents and other people that enter our life and influence us. So having medical or surgical mentors is very important.
That's good advice, Dr. Reimer. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for being part of this Heritage Highlight. I also had a chance to sit down with Chief Executive Officer Dr. Kent Thielen, who is also embracing the history of Mayo Clinic in Florida. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Thielen.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
In a recent lecture in Florida, Dr. Virginia Wright-Peterson said that the history of an entity inspires us and carries our values. Now, you have led the Florida campus for almost 6 years. How would you say has Mayo history helped you live out our values?
Well, thanks so much for the question. And as I reflect on my time here at Mayo Clinic, I'm in my 35th year with Mayo Clinic. And in the first days when I showed up at Mayo Clinic at our Rochester site for my initial training, I heard about our values, specifically our primary value, the needs of the patient come first. And I saw that not only talked about, but actually lived in the daily way that our staff interact with our patients. And that's been a constant throughout my time here at Mayo Clinic. It existed long before I arrived. And as I reflect back over the last 6 years, there have been many decisions we've made as an organization, as an enterprise, and as a site here at Mayo Clinic in Florida. And our decision making has always come back to that primary value, the needs of the patient come first, as an important component of the decisions we've made. That may be the growth and expansion that we've had here, or it even might be related to those times as we navigated the COVID pandemic.
How would you say can or should Mayo Clinic history inspire or motivate our staff in their daily work?
I think our history has shown us what's possible. We've been around for more than 160 years. And over that period of time, while we just talked about our values have been constant. There's been tremendous change, transformation, and Mayo Clinic has consistently been out front as a unique category of one organization that's been able to deliver unique types of care to patients. And I think that history has allowed us to recognize we shouldn't have limiting beliefs about what's possible. And many times we're the very first organization to be able to deliver some of these transformative types of care to our patients.
And you kind of touched on it already. Mayo Clinic always continues to grow and evolve, including right here in Florida. How do you see our historical foundation guide us through all these changes?
Well, we've had tremendous change here at Mayo Clinic as an organization. And here in Florida, it's exciting to think back over the last 37 plus years. We started out with a little more than 30 physicians and a little more than 100 allied health staff. And to see what's been possible as we reflect back, now we're nearly 10,000 employees. We've got a campus that continues to grow to more than 600 acres. And I think as we see what we've been able to accomplish in the past, that helps us better identify what's possible in the future. And as we look at the other sites across our Mayo Clinic enterprise, for instance, Rochester, over the course of the last 160 years, when we started here at Mayo Clinic in Florida, the Rochester campus wasn't a lot bigger than where we are right now. And we see how it's growing. And so I think it gives us a roadmap to the future about what might be possible.
Those are great insights, Dr. Thielen. I appreciate your reflections. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks so much for having me.
Some great perspectives there, and we are now back with Carole in your archive, and I see you've come a long way since the days of your just 2 closets.
Yes, we have. We now have shelving. We have archival document boxes. We are official.
It must feel so good as an
It
archivist.
truly does.
Awesome. And you took some time earlier to unbox some of the key artifacts we want to show in part 2 of this Heritage Highlight. But for now, Carole, where can viewers learn more about the history of this campus?
We have a web presence. We have our own website page, which can be found on the Mayo Clinic Library site. And the website contains quotes from the oral histories that we talked about, many photos from the early campus days under construction, as well as a timeline.
Very good. Be sure to check that out. And we hope everybody's coming back to look at the archives we've unboxed for everyone.
Thank you.